Hi, I'm Chad.
And I'm Kelly.
And
And
this
this
is
is Success with Chad and Kelly.
Okay, so have you heard of this doom spending thing? It's like everywhere online these days. This whole idea that because everything's kind of going haywire economically, we all just want to spend more, which honestly is kind of freaky, but also maybe tracks. I don't know about you, but I felt like we had to get to the bottom of this. So for this deep dive, we've got a really interesting mix. Reddit threads, we've got some YouTube videos, even takes from like actual financial experts. The whole shebang.
Yeah, it's definitely a sign of the times, wouldn't you say? It's like inflation's up, nobody knows what the housing market's doing, people are stressed. So maybe it makes sense that those usual, budgeting rules kind of go out the window.
Totally. It's that whole, well, the world's ending anyway, might as well get those shoes I've had my eye on. But seriously, before we spiral, let's back up for a sec. What even is doom spending? Like, is there an official definition?
Well, there is. Hold on.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah, the CNBC article you sent actually quotes Psychology Today, which I think sums it up pretty well. It's basically doom spending is about seeking control in uncertain times. And then they go on to say that spending, especially on like small things, provides that instant gratification, which is, a nice temporary escape from all the anxiety around inflation, job security, you name it.
So it's like that treat yourself mentality.
Yeah.
But like on steroids, because the world's kind of falling apart.
Pretty much, yeah. It's that feeling of, screw it, things are bad, why not indulge a little? It gives us a little bit of control, even if it's fleeting, over a situation that feels totally out of our control.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. And I mean, we've kind of seen this before, right?
Yeah.
Like, remember the great toilet paper hoarding of 2020?
Oh, absolutely. KSLA News did a whole segment on that, which was actually really insightful. Basically, it showed how panic buying, whether it's toilet paper or like the latest iPhone, often comes from an emotional place. We're reacting to a crisis.
So our brains are basically like, must grab something,
Yeah.
anything, just to feel like we have some control when everything feels uncertain. And with doom spending, instead of stocking up on essentials, it's like we're using non-essentials to feel better,
Yeah.
at least for a minute.
Yeah, it's like a weird form of self-soothing, right? To escape those daily anxiety.
Totally. So who's most likely to fall into this doom spending trap? Is it like a generational thing, or is everyone just susceptible?
Well, based on the stuff you sent, it seems like millennials and Gen Z, especially those who identify as Zillenials, are feeling it the most right now.
Which, I mean, yeah, that Reddit thread you found is wild. People talking about like delaying major life stuff because of the economy, and then in the same breath, they're like, oh yeah, and I bought those concert tickets.
It's that whole why not attitude, which makes sense. They're facing a very specific set of economic challenges right now.
Okay, so let's unpack that a bit. Why are millennials and Gen Z seemingly more prone to this doom spending than other generations?
Well, I mean, think about it. They're dealing with student loan debt, a
Mm.
housing market that's basically,
A nightmare.
yeah, pretty much. And then you add in social media, which is constantly telling them to treat themselves, live their best life, which, usually means spending money.
Oh, for sure. And it's not like older generations aren't on social media at all. It's just that for millennials and Gen Z, it's basically how they experience the world. Right. So that pressure is amplified.
Exactly. And we haven't even touched on the influence of like that whole Silicon Valley experiences over things, like buy experiences, not homes thing.
Which that CNBC article made a good point. Like that mindset can be financially toxic because it pushes people, especially younger generations, to constantly chase those Instagrammable moments, even if they can't really afford it.
And while experiences are great, it becomes a problem when it comes at the expense of long-term financial stability. And that's the danger with this whole doom spending thing.
Totally. Because it's not just about a few impulsive Amazon purchases here and there. It can snowball into something much bigger, right?
Exactly. And a lot of your sources touch on this, like that Sky News article that talked about how overspending in the moment can lead to bigger problems later on. Debt cycles, missed investment opportunities.
Yeah, and speaking of that Reddit thread, some of you were saying they felt stuck in this cycle of like doom scrolling leading to doom spending, which just made them more anxious about their finances overall. Like it's a vicious cycle.
Totally. And I think it's important to remember this isn't just a young people problem. Millennials and Gen Z might be more like open about it online, but this behavior is something that impacts everyone. I mean, there's a lack of financial literacy across the board, right? And consumer culture definitely doesn't help.
Ugh, for sure. So knowing all of this, how do we actually combat this? How do we break free from the doom and take back control of our wallets?
That is the million-dollar question, right? And luckily, it seems like you found some sources that offer some good strategies.
Okay, perfect. So let's dive into that then. What can we actually do about this urge to doom spend?
So we're basically trying to break those doom spending habits, right? It's like we know we shouldn't be doing it, but then that add to cart button is just right there.
And that's what makes this so tough. It's not just about knowing the right thing to do financially. Our emotions play a huge role.
Absolutely. Like if you tell someone who's super stressed to just calm down, that usually doesn't end well.
Right. There are deeper forces at work here.
Yeah.
One of the things that came up in a few sources, that CNBC article particularly, was this idea of adding friction to your spending. Friction. What does that even mean?
So they actually suggested trying to make spending more painful. And I know that sounds kind of harsh.
Yeah, a little bit.
But their point was using cash more often. Apparently, seeing those physical bills disappear hits different than just tapping your phone or whatever.
Oh, 100%. I am way less likely to buy a $5 latte if it means digging for change versus just like a quick tap. It's like
Yeah.
my inner cheapskate wakes up when there's actual cash involved.
Exactly. It makes it more real somehow. Oh, and speaking of real, that Sky News article had a good point too. They were talking about reframing how we think about saving, making it a positive thing, something to get excited about, rather than just like denying yourself stuff.
Oh, interesting. So instead of being all, oh, no more takeout this month, it's each time I skip takeout, I'm one step closer to that awesome vacation I want.
Exactly. It's about delayed gratification, sure, but also making that future goal feel more tangible, more motivating.
I can see that. Okay, so we've got add friction, we've got reframing saving. What else? Because, full disclosure, sometimes even knowing better doesn't stop me from wanting that cute sweater I see online.
Oh, tell me about it. Online shopping is its own beast. But you know what actually helps? Remember Social Simone's YouTube video?
The one where she's like hilariously honest about her own spending.
Yes. She talked about unsubscribing from all those tempting email lists, like
Right.
all of them.
Oh my God, the number of marketing emails I get every single day is insane.
Yeah.
And they're all so good at making you feel like you need whatever they're selling. Limited time offer, don't miss out.
It's relentless. But yeah, it's about setting those boundaries with yourself, but also with that constant barrage of buy me, buy me.
Out of sight, out of mind, as they say. Deleting shopping apps, too, while we're at it.
Definitely an option.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, it's not like we're aiming for a life of total deprivation, right?
Right. I mean, little treats are important, too. The small joys, the fun experiences, those matter.
Exactly. Nobody's saying you have to turn into a monk and live off rice and beans or something. It's about finding that middle ground.
Balance, right? That sweet spot
Yeah.
where you're enjoying the present, but also setting yourself up for a good future.
Exactly. But the million-dollar question is, how do we actually find that balance? It's different for everyone, isn't it?
Right. It's not like there's a magic formula for this stuff. Everyone's got their own money situation, their own goals, and their own weaknesses.
And that's where that whole self-awareness piece comes in, right? It's about knowing yourself, really. Like, what are your kryptonite spending situations?
So figuring out what my personal doom spending triggers are.
Exactly. Is it late night online shopping when you should be sleeping? Seeing everyone else's vacation pics and suddenly needing a trip?
Oh my God, the late night scrolling. That's when a new pair of shoes becomes like a matter of urgency.
See, there you go. So maybe it's putting the phone away an hour before bed or a strict no shopping after dinner rule for yourself.
Okay, yeah. Little speed bumps to like break the trance.
And remember what we were talking about earlier, those alternate coping mechanisms?
Instead of buying things I don't need.
Exactly. Call a friend, go for a walk, listen to music, whatever helps you feel more, I don't know, just more present instead of reaching for your wallet.
Trading that quick dopamine hit for something that actually makes you feel better long term.
Exactly. And the more you do it, the easier it gets. Like any habit, really. It's going to take time, effort, and yeah, you'll probably mess up sometime.
Oh, for sure. Nobody's perfect, right?
Exactly. This
Yeah.
isn't about being perfect. It's about making progress and remembering that, like, we're all in this together. You know, everyone's dealing with this crazy economy, the marketing overload. It's a lot.
It really is. So for anyone listening who's like, okay, this is a lot, where do I even start? What's the one thing you'd tell them?
Honestly, be nice to yourself. It's so easy to beat yourself up over money, but it's a journey. Take it one step at a time. Celebrate the wins, even the small ones, and don't be afraid to ask for help if you need it.
Love that. Self-compassion is key. This isn't about dwelling on past mistakes. It's about moving forward with more awareness, more intention.
Yes, and that's what I hope people take away from this whole conversation. Knowledge is power. You've got a better understanding now of why you might be doom spending and some tools to help.
And even small changes can make a difference, right?
Mhm.
It's about taking back control, which can feel really good in a world that often feels anything but.
Absolutely. So on that note, I'll leave you with this thought. Imagine yourself a year from now. You've been putting all this into practice, making mindful choices. What does that feel like?
I love that, holding on to that vision, that feeling of empowerment.
Because even amidst all the uncertainty, you have more control than you think.